The Alpha King saw bruises on his Omega Maid. That night, her cruel mate vanished. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main characters. The grand halls of the Thornridge Castle echoed with the sound of hushed whispers as servants hurried from room to room, tending to their royal duties. But among them, one stood out, Olivia Winters, the maid who, despite her gentle demeanor, was often looked down upon by her peers. She had been raised to serve, but no one had ever truly seen her. To most, she was invisible, just another cog in the endless machinery of the castle. Olivia had learned to accept her place in the world, a world that saw her as less than. She had learned to endure the scorn of others, especially from her cruel mate, Lucas, who found joy in making her life a living nightmare. No one in the castle knew the full extent of his cruelty, for he always kept his abuse behind closed doors, leaving Olivia to suffer in silence. That day, however, would be different. As she entered the grand dining hall to prepare for the evening's meal, a sharp pain shot through her side as Lucas's heavy hand struck her once again. She stumbled, her heart pounding in fear as she struggled to maintain her balance. She knew better than to speak out, for Lucas would only make it worse. But this time, someone noticed. Alpha King Ethan Thornridge, the ruler of all the Northern Territories, was passing through the hall when his sharp eyes caught sight of the marks on Olivia's arm. He stopped in his tracks, his gaze hardening as he saw the bruises on her pale skin. Olivia froze. No one had ever dared to intervene before. But Ethan, standing tall and regal in his dark attire, approached her with an air of authority. His presence alone made the room fall silent. He looked directly at her, his piercing gray eyes meeting hers. For a moment, she felt as though time had stopped. What is this? Ethan's voice was calm, yet carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken commands. Olivia's heart raced, but she knew better than to answer. She lowered her head, afraid that speaking might only provoke more punishment. Ethan's gaze softened for a split second, and he turned to face Lucas, his voice like thunder. Leave this place. Now. Lucas's face turned crimson with fury, but he dared not challenge the Alpha King. With a sharp turn, Lucas stormed out of the room, leaving behind a stunned silence. The room, once filled with the sound of whispers and murmurs, was now eerily quiet. Ethan turned back to Olivia, his expression unreadable. You're safe now, he said softly, his voice like a balm to her wounded spirit. No one will hurt you again. Olivia blinked, unsure if she was hearing him correctly. Could it be true? Was she finally free from the torment she had endured for so long? For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Olivia allowed herself to hope. She looked up at Ethan, the Alpha King who had not only seen her pain but had done something about it. That night, as the castle fell into a quiet stillness, Olivia realized that her life had just taken a turn. The cruelty that had haunted her for so long was gone, and in its place, there was something entirely new, a chance at a life where she wasn't invisible, a life where she could be more than just a maid. And as she lay in her small quarters that night, she couldn't help but feel a strange warmth in her chest. A warmth that had been absent for far too long. It was the beginning of something new, something she had never dared to dream of. The night that had begun with pain and fear ended with the promise of a future she could not yet fully understand, but one that was filled with possibility. The evening passed in a stillness Olivia had never known before. The bruises on her skin, though painful, seemed to fade in comparison to the weight that had been lifted from her heart. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to sleep without the constant fear of Lucas's cruel touch. Alpha King Ethan's intervention had been swift and decisive. A far cry from the helplessness she had felt for so long. She woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through her small window, a sense of calm settling over her that she had never experienced in the castle. As she rose from her cot, she felt a strange sensation, hope. She had never dared to hope for anything beyond survival. But now, everything had changed. The Alpha King's words echoed in her mind, no one will hurt you again. Could it really be true? Could she truly be free from Lucas's torment, from the fear that had haunted her every day? She dressed in her simple maid's uniform, the fabric rough against her skin, but for once, it didn't bother her. She was no longer invisible to those around her, no longer just another servant in the castle. As she made her way to the kitchen, preparing the morning meal for the household, she felt a sense of purpose that she hadn't known before. Olivia's thoughts were interrupted when a soft knock came at the kitchen door. She turned to see a tall figure standing in the doorway, his dark hair falling to his shoulders, his piercing gray eyes fixed on her. It was Ethan. His presence filled the room, commanding yet gentle. "Olivia," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I need to speak with you." Her heart skipped a beat. The Alpha King had come to speak with her? She had never imagined such a thing would happen. She nodded, wiping her hands on her apron before stepping toward him. "Of course, Your Majesty." Ethan gave a small, almost imperceptible smile at the formal address, but his expression quickly became serious. "I've made arrangements for you," he said. "No one will ever harm you again, but there is more I must do to ensure your safety." Olivia felt a sense of unease creeping over her. What did he mean by that? "You will be given a new role," Ethan continued, his voice steady. "No longer will you serve as a maid. I have secured your position in the castle, where you will be safe from anyone who wishes to harm you." Olivia blinked in surprise. A new role? What did that mean? Was she truly free from Lucas's cruelty? Ethan seemed to sense her confusion and stepped closer. "I know this is sudden, but you are no longer a mere servant. You are part of this kingdom now, and you will be treated as such." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She had never imagined such a thing, never dared to dream of being seen as more than a servant. And yet, here was Ethan, the Alpha King, offering her a life she had never even considered. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but words seemed to fail her. She simply nodded, overwhelmed by the kindness in his offer. "You will stay in a room here, away from the servants' quarters," Ethan added. "You will be given all the comforts you deserve. I will not allow you to be treated like you were before." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. She had never known kindness like this, never known a moment where someone had cared so deeply for her well-being. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Ethan's gaze softened, and he reached out to gently touch her arm. "You don't need to thank me. It's the least I can do." He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "There is something else, Olivia. I want you to understand that you are not alone. I know the weight of the past cannot be erased, but I will stand by you. No one will hurt you again, not while I am here." Olivia looked up at him, her heart swelling with gratitude and something else she couldn't quite place. Could it be trust? Was she really ready to trust someone after everything she had been through? The thought of opening her heart to someone, even someone as kind as Ethan, terrified her. But as she met his gaze, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. The beginning of a life where she wasn't just surviving but living. As Ethan turned to leave, he paused at the door, glancing back at her. "Rest today, Olivia. You've been through enough. Tomorrow, we'll discuss what comes next." With that, he left, leaving Olivia alone in the quiet kitchen. She stood there for a long moment, her mind racing. A new role, a new life, could it be possible? And what would it mean for her future, for the future she never thought she'd have? The next few days passed in a blur for Olivia. The changes that had come so suddenly felt surreal, like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. She spent her time in her new room, a modest yet comfortable space that felt like a sanctuary compared to the cold, harsh quarters she had once shared with the other servants. It was a room of her own, something she had never imagined she would have. The Alpha King had kept his word, and her life had shifted in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. As she went about her daily tasks, she found herself stealing glances at the royal corridors, the grand halls, and the throne room where Ethan often held court. Each time their paths crossed, he would greet her with a warm, respectful smile, his presence commanding but kind. His words of protection echoed in her mind, no one will hurt you again, but while she had begun to feel the safety that came with his promise, there was a part of her that remained cautious, unsure if she could fully trust it. It was a struggle to reconcile the image of the Alpha King she had first seen as stern, authoritative, and distant, with the Ethan she was now beginning to know, a man who showed tenderness and concern for her well-being. As Olivia spent more time within the castle, she began to see glimpses of the man behind the crown. Ethan wasn't just a king, he was a person, with burdens and struggles of his own. She saw the way his eyes would sometimes cloud with worry during council meetings, or how he would stare out the window in quiet contemplation when he thought no one was watching. There was a weight to his responsibilities, and Olivia couldn't help but feel a sense of empathy for him, despite the differences in their lives. One afternoon, as she was walking through the castle gardens, she encountered Ethan again. He was standing by the rose bushes, his hand brushing lightly over the petals, as though lost in thought. When he saw her, he gave a small nod and motioned for her to come closer. "Olivia," he said, his voice gentle, "I hope you are settling in well." She hesitated for a moment before responding, "I am, Your Majesty." "It's strange, but in a good way." Ethan smiled at her, the faintest trace of humor in his eyes. "I understand. Change is never easy." There was a pause, and then Ethan continued, "I know it's not much, but I want you to know that you are part of this castle now, part of this family. You are no longer just a maid in the eyes of anyone here." Olivia blinked, her heart fluttering slightly at his words. Part of this family? She had never considered herself anything more than an outsider, someone who existed to serve. But here was the Alpha King, telling her that she was now something more. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, before he spoke again. "I know it may take time for you to fully believe it, but trust me when I say that you are not alone. If you ever need anything at all, you can come to me. I won't turn you away." Olivia felt a lump form in her throat. She had never known kindness like this before, never known what it was to be treated with such dignity and respect. She had been invisible for so long, just a servant, a shadow in the corners of the castle. But now, for the first time, she felt seen. She nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. Her heart felt full, yet vulnerable. Ethan stepped back slightly, his expression softening. "You don't need to thank me, Olivia. Just remember that you are not alone here. You have a place, and you belong." With that, he turned and began to walk away, but then paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "Rest well tonight. Tomorrow, we will begin discussing your new role in the castle. There's much to consider, and I want to make sure you are comfortable with it." Olivia watched him leave, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had a future here. A future where she wasn't just surviving, but living. The quiet moments in the castle had become her refuge, but this moment, with Ethan's words ringing in her ears, was the one that would stay with her for a long time. It was a turning point in her life, the first step toward a new beginning. The next morning, Olivia woke to a sense of calm that she had never known before. The sun shone brightly through her window, casting warm light across the room. It was as though the world outside had changed overnight, and she was no longer just a servant. She was part of something bigger. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She stood, smoothing the folds of her simple dress, before walking over and opening it. Standing in the doorway was one of the castle attendants. "Olivia, the Alpha King requests your presence in the royal gardens," the attendant said with a respectful bow. Olivia felt her heart skip a beat. Ethan, the Alpha King, had asked for her? She quickly nodded, a sense of nervous excitement welling up inside her. "I will be there shortly," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. The attendant gave a small smile and left, and Olivia hurried to prepare herself. She had never been summoned by the king before, and the thought of spending more time with him sent her thoughts spinning. She made her way to the royal gardens, which were a sprawling oasis of beauty and tranquility. As she entered, she saw Ethan standing near a fountain, his back to her. The sight of him took her breath away. The Alpha King was always a commanding presence, but today, as he stood surrounded by flowers and greenery, he seemed almost otherworldly. His sharp features softened in the gentle sunlight, and there was something almost vulnerable about the way he stood, as if lost in thought. When he heard her approach, he turned and smiled. "Olivia, I'm glad you could join me," he said, his voice warm and inviting. She hesitated for a moment, then took a step forward. "Of course, Your Majesty," she replied, bowing her head slightly. Ethan gestured for her to come closer. "Please, no need for formalities. I wanted to speak with you about something important." Olivia's curiosity piqued, and she walked toward him, feeling a mix of excitement and unease. "What is it, Your Majesty?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Ethan smiled again, his eyes locking with hers. "I wanted to discuss your new role here at the castle. I've been thinking about how best to ensure that you are comfortable and well taken care of." Olivia's heart swelled with gratitude, but she couldn't help but wonder what he meant by that. "I appreciate your kindness, but I am already so grateful for everything you've done for me," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Ethan's expression softened, and he stepped closer to her. "It's not just about gratitude, Olivia. You deserve more than just safety. You deserve to live your life fully, without fear, without being hidden away." His words struck her deeply, and she found herself searching his eyes for any sign of insincerity. But there was none. "You are part of this kingdom now," Ethan continued. "And I want to ensure that you have a voice, a place where you can make your own choices. You don't have to be a servant. You have the potential to do so much more." Olivia blinked, her breath catching in her throat. "But what can I do?" "I'm just," Ethan interrupted her gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You are not just anything. You are someone who deserves respect, and you will have it. I've already made arrangements for you to start training in the Royal Library. There, you will learn all that you need to know to be part of something larger than yourself. I believe in your potential, Olivia. I know you are capable of great things." For a moment, Olivia could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had spent her whole life in the shadows, always told that she was insignificant, always told that her worth was tied to her ability to serve. But now, here was Ethan, telling her that she was worthy of something more. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I don't know what to say. I never thought I could have a life like this." Ethan's smile was gentle, and he stepped back, giving her space. "You don't have to say anything, Olivia. Just know that I will be here to support you every step of the way. This is your chance to create the life you deserve. Take it." As he spoke, Olivia felt something shift within her. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, beyond the life she had once known. Ethan had given her a chance, and she was determined not to waste it. She nodded, her heart swelling with hope. "I will, Your Majesty. I will make the most of this." Ethan's gaze softened, and he placed a hand on her arm, a gesture of reassurance. "I know you will. You are stronger than you think, Olivia." With those words, he turned and began to walk away, leaving Olivia standing in the garden, her heart full of new possibilities. She watched him go, her mind racing with the realization that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was someone with a future, and she would fight to make it the life she had always dreamed of. The following days unfolded with a sense of purpose that Olivia had never known before. Her time in the Royal Library was both overwhelming and exhilarating. The shelves were lined with ancient texts, books that contained knowledge and wisdom she had never imagined. Each day, she would immerse herself in a world of words, learning the language of the kingdom, the history of the people, and the customs that governed the land. It was a world she had never been part of, but one she was determined to understand. As Olivia worked her way through the library's vast collection, she found herself thinking more and more about Ethan. He had given her this opportunity, and she could sense his belief in her, a belief that was slowly replacing the doubt she had carried for so long. Every time he visited the library, his presence was calm and reassuring, as though he was silently reminding her that she was not alone. One afternoon, as she sat in the corner of the library, absorbed in a book about the kingdom's history, she felt a familiar presence beside her. She looked up to see Ethan standing there, his expression soft, his gray eyes filled with warmth. "Olivia," he said, his voice gentle, "how are you finding the books?" Olivia smiled, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. "They're incredible, Your Majesty. I've never known there was so much to learn. It's overwhelming, but I feel like I'm finally understanding more about the world." Ethan's eyes softened, and he took a step closer. "I'm glad to hear that. You have a gift for learning, Olivia. Don't ever underestimate your potential." The sincerity in his words took her by surprise. She had never considered herself gifted in anything other than serving, but Ethan's words made her see herself in a different light. She was capable of more. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan smiled and nodded. "You're welcome. But there's something else I'd like to discuss with you. The council has been talking about potential positions for you within the castle. I believe you could play an important role in helping us with the kingdom's needs." Olivia blinked in surprise. "A position? But I'm just a maid, Your Majesty." Ethan shook his head, his expression serious. "You are much more than just a maid, Olivia. You've already proven that. You've shown a willingness to learn and a drive to make a difference. I believe you can do more than just serve. I've seen your potential, and I want to help you explore it." Olivia felt a rush of emotions flood her chest. The idea of having a real position in the castle, of doing something meaningful, was something she had never even dared to dream about. "What kind of position?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, as though weighing his words carefully. "I'm not sure yet, but I'd like to discuss it with you. The kingdom is in need of people who are capable of bridging the gap between the royal family and the people. You could play a part in that." Olivia's heart raced as she absorbed his words. This was more than she had ever expected. The idea of contributing to the kingdom, of having a purpose beyond what she had known, was overwhelming but exciting. "I'd be honored to help, Your Majesty," she said, her voice steady with newfound resolve. Ethan nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "I knew you would. We'll talk more about it soon. For now, keep learning, keep growing. Your time will come." With that, Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Olivia standing in the quiet library, her mind racing with the possibilities of what the future might hold. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was someone with a future that was beginning to take shape before her eyes. As the days passed, Olivia continued her studies with renewed vigor, her heart full of hope. She knew the path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face it. With Ethan's support and her own determination, Olivia was beginning to understand that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. As Olivia continued to immerse herself in the world of knowledge, she began to feel a quiet confidence growing within her. The castle, once a place of fear and isolation, now felt like a home where she could breathe freely. Every morning, she would rise early to begin her studies, her mind eager to absorb all the history, politics, and strategy that filled the royal library's shelves. Ethan's words about her potential stayed with her, echoing in her thoughts as she spent her days learning. "You are much more than just a maid," he had said, and with each passing day, she began to understand the weight of those words. One afternoon, after hours of studying in the library, Olivia was summoned again by Ethan. This time, the message was different. She was to join him in the royal hall. Olivia felt a wave of nervous excitement wash over her. The royal hall was a place she had only ever seen from a distance, where the nobles and high-ranking officials gathered to discuss matters of the kingdom. As she approached the grand doors, she took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. The doors opened before her, and she stepped inside to find Ethan standing at the center of the room, flanked by several members of the council. The atmosphere was formal, but when Ethan's gaze met hers, a small, reassuring smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Olivia," he said, his voice commanding yet kind. "Come forward." Olivia moved to stand beside him, her nerves settling slightly at the warmth in his gaze. This is the first step, Ethan continued, his voice carrying across the room. I've been in discussions with the council, and we've decided that you are ready to take on a more prominent role. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. A more prominent role? What did that mean? She had always been a servant, never imagining she could be anything more. Ethan turned to the council, his expression serious. I want Olivia to begin assisting with matters of diplomacy and communication. Her sharp mind and understanding of the kingdom's history will make her an invaluable asset. The council members exchanged glances, some nodding in agreement while others seemed skeptical. Olivia felt a wave of uncertainty, but she steadied herself. I don't know if I'm ready for such a responsibility, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Ethan looked at her, his expression softening. You are more than ready, Olivia. I've seen your growth, and I believe you can handle this. I'll be here to guide you. A sense of warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time, Olivia felt a flicker of belief in herself. The room was silent for a moment as the council members deliberated. Finally, one of them, an older man with a long beard, spoke up. If the Alpha King believes in her, then we will support this decision. Ethan nodded. Thank you. He turned to Olivia, his gaze steady. This is your chance, Olivia. A chance to shape the future of this kingdom. Olivia took a deep breath, her heart swelling with a mix of excitement and fear. She was no longer just a maid in the shadows. She was someone who could make a difference, someone with the power to change her own fate. I'll do my best, Your Majesty, she said, her voice strong with newfound determination. Ethan smiled, his eyes warm. I know you will. As the meeting came to an end and the council members dispersed, Olivia stood beside Ethan, her mind racing with the possibilities that lay ahead. She had come so far from the frightened girl she had once been. She was no longer invisible. She had a voice, and for the first time in her life, she knew that her future was in her own hands. As she walked through the corridors of the castle with Ethan by her side, Olivia realized that the journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but it was a journey she was no longer afraid to face. She had a purpose now, and she would see it through, no matter where it led. The sun was setting as they reached her quarters, casting a golden glow across the stone walls. Ethan turned to her, his expression thoughtful. I know this is a lot to take in, but remember, you're not alone in this. I will always be here to guide you. Olivia nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. Thank you, Your Majesty. For everything. Ethan gave a small smile, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. You've earned it, Olivia. And this is just the beginning. With those words, he turned and left, leaving Olivia standing in the doorway, her mind filled with hope and determination for the future. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a part of something bigger, and she was ready to embrace it fully. Olivia spent the following weeks adjusting to her new life, each day bringing a sense of fulfillment she had never imagined. Her studies in the Royal Library had only deepened her understanding of the kingdom, its politics, and the complex history that had shaped the world around her. As Ethan had promised, she was no longer just a maid, she was becoming a vital part of the kingdom's future. She had started attending meetings with the council, observing the discussions with a sharp eye, and offering her insights when she felt it was necessary. The council members had initially been skeptical of her, but as they saw her growing confidence and knowledge, they began to listen more intently. Ethan stood by her side, offering guidance when needed, but allowing her to take the reins in small matters. She was learning, and with each passing day, she felt more and more like she belonged in this world. One afternoon, as Olivia walked through the castle gardens, a sense of peace washed over her. The flowers were in full bloom, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray stone of the castle. The air was fresh, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she could breathe freely. The events of the past months had transformed her. She was no longer a woman living in the shadows, unsure of her place in the world. She had a future now, a future she was actively shaping with her own hands. As she walked deeper into the gardens, she spotted Ethan standing near a bench, gazing out at the horizon. His presence was always commanding, but today there was something different about him. He seemed lost in thought, his expression serious. Olivia hesitated for a moment, wondering if he needed space, but then decided to approach him. "Your Majesty," she called softly. Ethan turned to look at her, his expression softening as he recognized her. "Olivia, I didn't hear you coming. Please, join me." Olivia smiled and walked over, sitting beside him on the bench. They both stared out at the gardens for a moment, the silence comfortable between them. "What is on your mind?" Olivia asked gently, sensing that something was weighing on him. Ethan sighed, his gaze never leaving the horizon. "I've been thinking about the future. About the kingdom. There's so much that needs to be done, and sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough." Olivia listened intently, sensing the burden in his words. She had seen glimpses of the pressures he carried as the ruler of the Northern Territories. He was a man of great strength, but even the strongest of kings had their doubts. "You are doing more than enough, Your Majesty," Olivia said softly, her voice steady with conviction. "You've already shown great wisdom in how you've handled the kingdom, and you're making a difference in ways that can't always be seen right away." Ethan turned to look at her, his gray eyes searching hers. There was a softness in them that she hadn't seen before. "You truly believe that?" he asked quietly. Olivia nodded, her heart swelling with the sincerity of her words. "Yes, I do. You've given me the chance to be more than I ever thought I could be. And I'm just one person. Imagine what you're doing for the kingdom as a whole." Ethan's gaze softened, and for a moment, the weight of his role as king seemed to lift, if only for a brief moment. "You have a way with words, Olivia," he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. Olivia smiled shyly, feeling the warmth of his compliments settle in her chest. She had never been one to seek recognition, but Ethan's words meant more than she could express. They were no longer just the king and a maid, they were two individuals who had come to understand each other in ways neither had expected. As the evening sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the gardens, Ethan stood, offering Olivia his hand. "Come," he said with a smile, "let's walk a bit longer. There's something I want to discuss with you." Olivia took his hand, her heart fluttering at the warmth of his touch. Together, they walked through the gardens, their footsteps in sync, as the castle's shadow stretched across the land. Olivia knew that this was just the beginning of something larger, something far beyond what she had ever imagined for herself. And as they walked side by side, she felt a quiet sense of belonging she had never known before. She was no longer invisible. She was seen. And with Ethan by her side, there was nothing she couldn't do. The days continued to pass with a new sense of purpose for Olivia. Every task, every lesson, was no longer something she endured but something she embraced. She felt herself growing in ways she never thought possible. The council had started to trust her more, and her insights, though still humble, were taken seriously. Ethan had kept his word. She wasn't just part of the castle now, she was a part of the kingdom's future. One afternoon, as Olivia walked through the corridors of the castle, her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to see Ethan approaching, a familiar warmth in his eyes. "Olivia," he called, and she smiled at the sound of her name on his lips. "I need to speak with you. I have a proposal." Her heart quickened at the mention of a proposal. She had grown accustomed to his guidance, and the thought of him asking for her help, or perhaps seeking her opinion on something important, made her feel both honored and a bit nervous. "Of course, Your Majesty," she said, her voice steady, though her mind was racing with possibilities. Ethan gestured for her to walk with him, and they moved down the hall together, their footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. "The council is considering a new initiative to strengthen our alliances with the neighboring kingdoms," he explained. "I believe you have the potential to play an important role in this." Olivia looked up at him, surprised. "Me? But I don't have the experience." Ethan smiled at her, a reassuring glimmer in his eyes. "That's where your unique perspective comes in. You see things differently than many of the others. You understand the people, and that's what's needed." He paused for a moment, allowing his words to sink in. "I want you to represent our kingdom in these discussions, Olivia. I believe you have the ability to bring something new to the table." Olivia's breath caught in her chest. She had always believed her worth was tied to serving, to staying in the background, but now, Ethan was offering her something far beyond what she had ever imagined. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, the weight of his words settling on her heart. Ethan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't need to say anything right now. But know that this is an opportunity for you to use your voice, your knowledge, to make a difference. You are ready, Olivia." They stopped in front of one of the grand windows overlooking the castle gardens, the sunlight filtering through the glass and casting soft patterns on the floor. Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "This is more than just a task, Olivia. It's a chance for you to shape the future of the kingdom." Olivia's heart raced. She had spent her life believing she was nothing more than a servant, but here was Ethan, the Alpha King, offering her a chance to be so much more. Her mind swirled with the possibilities. I'll do it," she said, her voice filled with a new resolve. Ethan's smile was soft but proud. "I knew you would," he said. "The council will be meeting tomorrow. I'll have the details ready for you by then. But for today, take some time to think about it." Olivia nodded, her thoughts racing as she took in the enormity of what had just been offered to her. As Ethan turned to leave, he paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "One more thing," he said, his voice quiet but meaningful. "You are not alone in this. You have my full support, Olivia. And I believe in you." She watched him walk away, her heart full of gratitude and determination. For the first time in her life, she felt that she was truly seen, not just as a maid or a servant, but as someone with potential, with a future. As the evening sun began to set, Olivia stood at the window, watching as the sky turned shades of gold and pink. She had a choice to make, and though the path ahead was uncertain, she was no longer afraid to walk it. With Ethan's support and her own growing strength, Olivia was ready to take on whatever the future held. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in her life, she believed she was worthy of them. The days leading up to the council meeting were filled with anticipation for Olivia. She spent each moment preparing herself, studying the intricate details of the kingdom's foreign relations, and how they could be improved. The idea of representing the kingdom had once seemed impossible, but now, with each passing day, she felt more capable, more confident. As the morning of the meeting arrived, Olivia dressed in a simple but elegant gown, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. The dress fit her well, though she had never imagined herself wearing something so fine. It was not just the clothes that had changed, it was her entire life. When she entered the royal hall, the council members were already gathered, seated at the long table that stretched across the room. The tension in the air was palpable, as the kingdom's future was often decided here. Ethan stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding as always, but today there was a difference in the way he looked at Olivia. His gaze was filled with quiet encouragement, a silent assurance that she was ready. Olivia walked confidently to the table, her heart steady as she took her seat beside Ethan. The murmurs of the council died down as they acknowledged her presence. Though some of the members still seemed unsure, there were others who welcomed her with nods of approval. Ethan began the meeting, his voice strong and authoritative as he laid out the issues they needed to address. Olivia listened carefully, absorbing every word. When it was her turn to speak, she stood, her heart racing for only a moment before she found her voice. "I believe," she began, her voice clear and steady, "that the key to strengthening our alliances lies in understanding the people we wish to align with. We must show them that we value their culture and their traditions as much as we value our own." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. She could feel the eyes of the council members on her, and for the first time, she realized they were listening to her. Olivia continued, offering her thoughts on how the kingdom could approach negotiations with respect and understanding, suggesting initiatives that would bridge the gaps between their people and the neighboring territories. As she spoke, she could feel Ethan's eyes on her, a quiet pride in his gaze. When she finished, there was a moment of silence before the council erupted in conversation. Some members immediately began discussing her ideas, while others raised concerns, but all were engaged, a clear sign that her presence was having an impact. Ethan leaned over to her, his voice low but filled with admiration. "You did well, Olivia. You've earned their respect. Olivia couldn't help but smile, though she kept her composure. The validation she had longed for, the belief in herself that had been so elusive, was now something she felt in the very core of her being. The meeting continued, and as the discussions grew more intense, Olivia realized just how far she had come. She was no longer the frightened maid in the background. She was an active participant, contributing to the future of the kingdom. When the meeting finally adjourned, Ethan stood and turned to her. "You've made a difference today," he said, his voice full of quiet pride. Olivia nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she replied, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without your support." Ethan smiled, a rare, warm smile that reached his eyes. "You've always had the potential, Olivia. I just helped you see it." As they left the royal hall together, Olivia couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment she had never known. She had stepped into a new role, one that had once seemed impossible, and she had succeeded. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was living. And for the first time in her life, Olivia truly believed that she had the power to shape her own future.